Hello, can you just let me know if we're okay for sound? Thanks. Good. Good. So just tell me in the group chat, how many times have you read the pre-scene case study? How many times have you read the pre-scene case study? How many times? Just tell me in the group chat, how many times you read that pre-scene case study? Once? Only once, Alison? Just once? That's good. Better than zero. That's good. Only one person talking to me today. There's only Alison talking to me. Alison, just me and you today. Zainab. Twice. Okay. Maria. Twice. Yeah. Good. Good, good. So we're about to kick off the pre-scene debrief. I'm going to start quite promptly because I know we're kind of very busy. We've got things to do. So I will just start off. We'll give you a little bit of a debrief about the pre-scene, about the course, and then we'll go into a line-by-line analysis of the pre-scene. I want you to talk to me as many questions as you can. Please ask as many questions as you want. I won't be here tomorrow, so ask the questions now on the pre-scene. Now, one thing I'll say to everybody, this is going to be recorded. So we're going to put this on YouTube. So if you miss something, you can it's going to be on YouTube anyway, right? So hopefully that's okay for you. Okay, we're going to kick off. First of all, if you want to contact me after the event, please just scan this QR code. This has got all the links as well to the free material, the podcast, the YouTube channel. So everything is going to be on that contact form. So just have a quick scan and just save that for later. If you haven't got your scanner with you, or if you're watching this on mobile, just type in www.sblguru.com and it will go there. And I will definitely be doing a podcast in the next few days about hotel industry. I'll definitely doing a podcast, hopefully by the weekend. So make sure you've got that podcast on your Spotify ready to go. Yeah, YouTube channel is at SBL Guru, so you can also find this video. It will be on the SBL Guru channel later on today. Okay, so let's get into the pre-scene, right? So just before we get in there, just a quick advert because this course is sponsored by the double mock course. So there's still room to get on the double mock course. Double mock course, you must be able to do the mock exam on Monday or Tuesday next week. So what that double mock course is going to give you is going to give you a deep dive into the pre-scene and give you notes on the pre-scene case study, additional notes. It's going to give you a mock one, which you're going to sit on the ACCA practice platform based on the pre-scene. So I've written a mock, which I think is a good chance of coming up in your exam. It will give you real-time coaching during that mock, so you're going to hit perfect timing. You're going to get that mock marked with feedback. Then there's going to be a detailed debrief of that mock, showing you the exam technique. And mock 2, there will be a mock 2 based on the pre-scene, which is not marked, but we're going to review that in a live session on Saturday before the examination. So that's still available. If you want to do it, you must be able to submit the mock on Monday or Tuesday next week. It's all day Monday, all day Tuesday, and let me know. And again, I'll mention at the end the dates. So the first thing to say is about the pre-scene is a lot of people get obsessed with the pre-scene. The pre-scene will hardly be used in the exam. You will not be looking at the pre-scene on the day of the exam. You will not be looking at the pre-scene. So this is the thing people get wrong. They go, oh yeah, the pre-scene is so important. It's really just background, right? In the exam, the information is going to come from the post-scene. So you're not going to be, most people say they don't even open the pre-scene in the exam. Some people say it's 5% relevant to what they write in the examination. Most of that should be in your brain anyway, that 5%. So you should not be looking at the pre-scene as being, oh, there's going to be a big question. They put something in the pre-scene that's definitely going to come up. It's actually the opposite. So the second thing about the exam is anything can come up. Any topic on the syllabus, even very small areas of the syllabus can come up in the examination. Even things that came last time can come again. So last exam, they asked about Balogun's contextual change. It came again from consecutive examination. So what you must realize is in the exam, they can ask theories they've asked last time. There are different versions of the exam. There's a morning, afternoon, and a spare. So there's lots of different topics they can ask on the examination. So if you say, could they ask project management? The answer to any question, which is it on the syllabus? If it's on the syllabus, they can ask it, right? So anything can come up in the exam. The very important point, and they're going to ask, and sometimes they ask really obscure areas, and they do ask models in the exam. So definitely the trend has been at least one question is more of a model-based question where you have to know the model to pass the examination. It's not all common sense and easy as people tell you. So make sure the objective of the pre-scene is you have a good understanding of the industry and the environment. You mean to read the pre-scene a number of times and you should be familiar with it, but you won't need to refer to it on the day of the examination, okay? You will not be looking at it on the day of the exam. You're going to be looking at the post-scene because that's where the questions are. So don't do a lot of additional research. These are fictitious companies. They're going to be amalgamated from real life companies, but you can't look up a real life company and find the answer to what is going to happen. It won't be like that in the examination. On the day of the exam, once again, to emphasize, pre-scene is not going to be used much on the day of the exam. And don't spend hours. A lot of people, they're like looking for some secret, cracking the code of the pre-scene. It's absolute rubbish, right? There's no Easter egg in the pre-scene. There's nothing there for you, right? Actually, you know what the big secret is in the pre-scene is you want to look for things that are missing from the pre-scene. That is the secret you're looking for. Don't look for what's there. Look for what is not there. Look for what they haven't talked about. That is the secret for using the pre-scene. So if they haven't talked about it, that's more likely to come in your exam. If they have talked about it, it's less likely, much less likely to come in your exam because you will not be referring to that page of the pre-scene. The exhibits on the day are what are going to generate the questions, not the pre-scene exhibits. So look for the gaps is the big tip on the pre-scene, which means the more you look at it, the more you might see some gaps. It's the gaps which are going to form the questions in the exam. That's why it's quite difficult to predict the exam. All 5 professional skills marks will be asked in the examination and they'll be tested once in the exam. So that's the introduction. The pre-scene is really all about industry, knowing the industry. And we're quite lucky today because what we've got in the pre-scene is an industry that we at least have some understanding of, is an industry at least we have some knowledge of in the examination. So that's a pretty good thing for us. So let's go into the detail of the pre-scene exam. And I'm sure you might have read it once. I'm going to try and pick out some important areas which might be important. I'm going to try to pick out some of the gaps, right? Some of the gaps that we're looking for in this paper. Okay, so the first thing that makes me laugh with the examiner is like we sometimes they tell us things that are really obvious. This is a picture of a hotel. It's from Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. That's where that picture comes from. Okay, it doesn't mean the exam is going to be about Saudi Arabia, right? It doesn't mean that. I'm just telling you that for information. So the examiner tells us that hotels are short-term accommodation for people who pay to stay in a hotel room. Really? I'm really glad he told us that, because I had no idea what a hotel was before I opened this case. Now, in terms of the guest profile, the important thing here is that generally the business guest is going to pay higher margins. Okay, they value convenience, Wi-Fi setup. So business customers are going to pay more for the hotel room. So it's quite good to attract the business customers, but generally their stays are short. Leisure customers, they are much more price sensitive. So therefore they're going to want more of a discount. They're going to have lower margins, but they will tend to stay longer. If you look at this company later, they're really focused mainly on the leisure market. They're not, they've got the locations don't really target particularly the business customers. So that could be a significant thing in the examination. There are star ratings, and you can get 1 star to 5-star ratings. Now, we're looking at the 4 stars, right, for the exam in our company, but there are a whole range of them. And if you look at in the UK, if anybody's based in the UK, the hotels that are actually doing really well at the moment are hotels called Travelodge and Premier Inn. Has anybody heard of these hotels before? Travelodge and Premier Inn. So actually the one that is performing really well in the UK and growing really fast is the Premier Inn type hotel, which is kind of offering a kind of value for money proposition in the hotel. So although they're 1 to 5, sometimes it's at the bottom end of the market where there's actually quite a lot of money to be made in these hotels. This gives us like an indication about what 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, and 4 star. What do you get for your 4 star, 5 star, world-class luxury, chauffeurs, fine dining restaurants? So what we've got in our industry structure, according to this, is 2 types of like industry structure. We've got chains and we've got independents. Now for the chains would be something like a Hilton hotel. And right now, that will give you some advantages. There are some benefits of being part of a chain. You can have that brand recognition. If you want to stay at a Hilton, people know the brand. You can do centralized marketing. You can have loyalty programs, points, loyalty cards. Hilton H Honors is the one at the Hilton. You can have big economies of scale in your marketing, buying, purchasing, production. And because you've got like a range of hotels in a range of locations, you can mitigate your risk to a certain degree. And definitely, if you're going to sell your hotel chain, the branded ones are the ones that sell better. Independent, operated as a single hotel, independently, greater flexibility. What's the benefit of being independent? You've got more creative control. You're not paying those big fees and royalties, and you can target niche markets. So particular types of customer who are looking for something particular, and you can have hotels can have a brand story like, we are the Golf Hotel in St. Andrews. Now they talk about one thing, that about half the hotels in this country are independent, so about half of them are chains. But there has been a lot of consolidation, and that's one thing they might ask about in the examination is, would it be good for the company to consolidate? And they talk about partnering organic growth, which is opening new hotels, which is kind of what they're doing in this hotel. But there's also something called partnering arrangements, which is franchising. Okay, so definitely franchising is a part of the SBL syllabus, right? So make sure for your exam, you know about the benefits and problems of franchising, in particular in relation to a hotel chain. because one possible question might be asking about them franchising their current brand. They could use a franchise system to gain money based on their current brand, franchising it going forward. So make sure you know about the benefits and problems of franchising. So owner managed does what it says. The owners manage and control the hotel. The owner can be a chain or an independent business. Franchised you should be familiar with this from your SBL syllabus. The franchisor and the franchisee. So Hilton is the franchisor. They're selling the franchise and somebody's going to buy that franchise. So again, it could come up a situation where they're going to ask about that, but in the context of our hotel chain, the Live brand that they've got, right? Live More. So make sure you know about the benefits and problems. Can you tell me some of the risks in the group chat? Tell me some of the risks of using franchising to expand your hotel. What are some of the risks? Just tell me in the group chat, what are the risks of franchising your hotel chain? Jesse, Hibbert, yeah, reputation. Alison, yeah, good point, Alison. Less control. Definitely high fees. Yeah, high fees from Shazeb, high fees. Yeah, so from the franchisor perspective, high fee is good, right? You want high fees, but from the franchisee perspective, it's bad. So normally we're going to be, I suppose they could ask either one, right? They could ask either one. We could become part of a bigger chain, or we could be the franchisor. There are different directions the question may go in the examination. We could be the franchisor. We could be the franchisee. We could buy into one of these big Hilton chains. Will it help our hotel? Will it help our occupancy? So make sure you know that from both directions in the exam, because they could ask either direction. So when I saw this table, it seems like to me, the first thing I thought of was competitive rivalry. So one of the 5 forces. So they haven't asked really a 5 forces question, environmental 5 forces question for a long time. This is kind of one of the model questions you need to know in the examination. And recently, there's always been one very specific model-based question in the examination. So something to consider. Just let me ask you a question about the 5 forces. The bargaining power of customers, would you say that is high or low? Bargaining power of customers. What do you think it's going to be? Would you say it's high or low? Yeah. Yeah, so most people are going for high. I think it's high, yeah. You've got a lot of choice, right? You've got a lot of choice. It's quite price sensitive. So definitely, because there's a lot of competition, whenever they've got a lot of competition, generally going to be good for the individual consumer. So yeah, so that, they may give you more information in the post scene, right? Again, a lot of that detail may come in the post scene, which will tell you more about the environmental factors, and that could be a thing that will get you, a question. So make sure, a lot of people say SBL, it's all common sense. It's totally rubbish, right? You do need to know your models for the examination. It's not just a thing you can just do the night before. So 4-star hotels, they get most of their revenue from accommodation. The rest is from other areas such as food and beverage. We'll come on to it later on, but definitely the big opportunity for hotels is to do things like conferences, events, spas, right? Because not only does it get a revenue source from being a spa or from having a wedding, but actually that wedding, people pay for the wedding, but they're also going to pay for the accommodation. They're also going to pay for drink. So it's actually a very good synergy effect on the other revenues in the hotel. So if you're not doing those things, that is a big lost opportunity, because these things can have a good margin and they can especially help you in the off-peak times. Yeah, it talks about bars and restaurants being open for non-residents. I think most bars and restaurants are open to non-residents. Very rarely do you see a bar or a hotel because they want to maximize their revenue. Operating profit margin is around 10%. And we'll see later on that actually the hotel has got a reasonably good profit margin. Okay, so industry challenges, again, they mentioned competition and they use that word differentiation, right, to differentiate. So again, are they going to ask about strategies? I think the strategy of this company is like basically quality service, but differentiation is going to be an important factor. Again, it reminded me of like 5 forces. Now, the problem is with leisure travel, it's very susceptible to economic recession. So in an economic recession, definitely people are going to spend less time, especially this hotel, which is at the seaside, they're going to spend less time in this hotel. So definitely it's going to be a problem going forward. The 4-star hotel at the seaside is going to be hit quite badly by recession. Rising costs. Yeah, rising costs. Is there any way, because you've got rising costs, some costs you can't avoid, like maintenance and renovation, but what about using technology to cut your costs? Is there any way we can do that? Because this company's like pretty rubbish at technology going forward. Recruiting staff, I just thought there's a part of your syllabus when they talk about recruiting staff, there's a part of your syllabus question on the exam that they haven't asked about for a long time, which comes under talent management. If you don't know anything about talent management, listen to my podcast, which is 10 minutes long, about talent management at Google. That will give you some ideas about how to build a strong talent management system. Okay, so this is, ideas. And again, they're going to tell you more in the post scene about that. They'll give you a lot more information you can use to build a question or an answer on talent management. There's definitely a peak and low season. So if you're going to be an effective hotel, what strategies can you use to get revenue? So that could be something they ask about. Marketing strategies to get customers in the off season, right? How are we going to use our marketing? How are we going to use our database? How are we going to use our technology to fill the rooms when they're in the off season? Because there's a big fixed cost in hotels. Hotels are all about fixed cost. So again, I talked about off-season opportunities. There's a peak season, there's an off-season. So for the off-season opportunity, in Blackpool in the UK, if anybody's ever heard of that, in winter, they have gay weekends where all the gay people go to Blackpool for the weekend, right? So this is a sort of like very familiar thing. So what they're trying to do is to create demand in the off-peak season. So this is all opportunities, right? Product development, marketing helps you to fill your hotels in the off-peak season. Revenue management, we know higher prices mean lower demand. That's why the technology is very, very good. If you've got good technology, you can charge your customers the highest possible price because you know who the customers are, you know what they're willing to pay. So it's very important. Those companies using AI, those companies using their big data systems can get a much better price. This was what happened in not a hotel, but when The Lion King was on Broadway, they charge different prices to different people because they're using technology to work out how much those people are likely to pay. So this is a use of technology to gain a competitive advantage. And that's something that technology can bring to you if you've got the data and systems in place. Again, this hotel seems a little bit backward, a bit old-fashioned in terms of using that technology. Definitely Airbnb is a major threat to you, but how are you going to counter that? What are you going to do? You can't acquire Airbnb, but is there something you can do to make it more family friendly? That a lot of people stay at Airbnb is often families. So can we make something more family friendly? Is there anything we can do in our hotel? They're mentioning the environment there on sustainability, carbon footprint. Whenever I see that in the exam, my spidey senses start to twitch. I'm thinking about that part of the syllabus, which is all about CSR. I'm thinking about that part of the syllabus, which is about integrated reporting. I'm thinking about integrated reporting, benefits, stakeholders. Which stakeholders are we going to address in our integrated report? So a lot of elements can flow from that sustainability idea. So I just put in there, it says environmental concerns have got a negative impact on demand from business guests, and they can try and reduce their environmental impact of the hotels. Also, a lot of meetings are going to take place on Zoom, which means lower demand for hotels. But some hint there about potentially integrated reporting, CSR. It could look at stakeholders as well, because the idea of integrated reporting is you're reporting to your stakeholders. So if the question says to you, assess the stakeholders, what do you talk about? Yeah, definitely, Maria, mapping, the power and the interest, right? The Mendeley. Yeah, so make sure you know those models, right? Like your Mendeley, make sure you know about power and interest, because that one, again, people said, but it's not mentioned. There's no stakeholder mentioned in the pre-scene. That's exactly what they do. They bring things into the post-scene which have not been mentioned at all in the pre-scene. So make sure you know about your stakeholder mapping. Make sure you know about how to assess the stakeholder power and how to assess stakeholder interest, and also those stakeholder management, like key player, engage closely with our key player, because that one could be something, again, they're going to give you information about particular stakeholders in the post scene. Maybe combine it with a question on integrated reporting. Talks about technology, convenience, checking in, checking out, and some hotels use chatbots to provide guests with instant answers. I think chatbots, I've never met a chatbot I liked personally, but some people might like it. But definitely technology is becoming more of a thing, which suggests that our hotel in the case study is being a bit left behind, right? They're seem a bit, not much, as far as we can tell from the pre-scene, they're not massively into technology. Okay, so increased reliance on technology, connectivity. They mention the importance of data security, cyber security. That indicates to me a potential question. Could there be a question on cybersecurity controls, IT controls, ethical hacker, a question about risks in the IT system, a question about risks and recommend controls. Yeah, recommend controls. So Alex has said, should they pivot towards tech considering their focus is personalized? Well, a lot of that tech allows personalization, Alex. Some hotels, you go in and you can choose a pillow menu, choose what type of pillow you like. You do that on an app. And people like to use apps quite a lot now, especially younger people. So actually it's part of the service, right? That is part of the service that you're going to offer. You can understand the customer better because you've got a better picture of who the customer is, what they like, what they don't like, and that allows you to do the personalization. They talk about yield management, which is software data analytics. They're talking here about historical demand, included in competitive pricing, market conditions, which could affect demand for rooms when predicted demand is low, prices are lowered, etc. So they're definitely talking about that. Could there be there's lots of aspects of that which they could ask about in the exam, the different types of big data analytics. There's 4 big types of big data analytics. This is just one of them. So it could come more about AI. There's a big thing about AI and robotics on your syllabus. So how could AI be used in the hotel? How could we use AI more effectively in this hotel going forward? Now, when I'm looking at the But again, it's not going to be related to this one. It may be other ones because they're not going to ask you to go back to the pre-scene, right? It will be more information in the post-scene. What I'm looking for are gaps, and what I'm looking for are things that are odd things that seem incongruous or out of place. This for me is incongruous or out of place. They suddenly mention sale or lease back. It's like, what are you talking about? Huh? Sale or lease back? When I see things out of place like that, it means it's kind of been shoehorned into the pre-scene with a view to asking a question. Normally, if you're talking about hotels, sale or lease back would not be the top of your list of things you will talk about. So this is based on the pre-scene. So this is going to be about your hotels. What will they ask? Well, one thing they haven't asked for ages and ages and ages in the exam is going to be funding, right? Funding. If we're going to have a strategy, and the post-scene may tell you what the strategy is going to be, one way, how are we going to raise funding? So they may ask you about the different funding options, of which sale and leaseback is one. There are other funding options that are covered on your syllabus, right? Different types of funding options, right? So make sure you know about the benefits and problems, risks, issues with the different funding types. So they might be like a first part's about strategies they're going to be doing going forward. That might be acquisition, it might be franchising, whatever they're going to decide to do. But then they're going to ask about how they're going to fund it. And that's going to be like a 12, 14 mark question where you've got to explain the different funding options, and they will give you more information relevant to the case. So make sure you know about your different funding types. And in particular, make sure you know about the different benefits and problems of each of the different funding types in the exam. So industry success factors, the most important thing is customer service, guest experience, quality, comfort. These are the KPIs. But also it says effective marketing and branding are important success factors. Could they ask a question which is about how to improve the marketing? You know, they might sort of tell you in the post scene that they're not doing much marketing, and they've not really achieved the full capacity in terms of marketing. So make sure you know about all your e-marketing issues, the different things like search engine optimization, and influencer marketing, all these things, to try to attract customers. The question, he does like questions where he's asking about marketing strategies or promotion strategies. Lots of examples there to gain a good score in your examination. Yeah, 7 Ps, definitely 7 Ps, right? Remember there's the 4 basic Ps, Alex, but there's those 3 extra Ps which are good for service-based organizations, right? Can people tell me what are the 3 extra Ps which are used in service-based organizations? What are the 3 extra Ps we're going to use in service? What are the 3 extra Ps which are only used in service companies? Can anybody tell me in the group chat? Yeah, people, process, physical, evidence. People, process, physical, evidence. People, process, physical, evidence. Yeah. So in the exam, because they are in a service-based organization, a service-based business, then could be a question about marketing, but taking it from a service-based marketing. So most of the marketing questions so far, they've asked about the 4 Ps, but What they can ask about are the 3 extra Ps, and that could be a question for you in your examination. Okay, so make sure you know those 3 extra Ps, because that's something they haven't really asked before, and it does relate to a hotel, right? Relates specifically to a hotel. Or it could be a combination. It could be all 7 Ps in your answer. KPIs, occupancy rate, daily rate, how much should customers pay for the room, revenue per available room, average length of stay. You obviously prefer longer stay. And this is like very important in hotels now, is the reviews. TripAdvisor, now a lot of people, timeshare, don't think so, Alex. Possible, but I don't see it. But it could be. Could be some hotels do that. TripAdvisor reviews are going to be very important for you. A lot if your TripAdvisor review is crap, it could be the death of your hotel, right? So very important. Employee turnover again points towards the people management part of the business. They talk about industry body. They're the ones with compliance inspections. So there's going to be a compliance risk. There's going to be compliance risk in the business, compliance risk. Okay, I'm just going to take a glass of water. And anybody got any questions? Timeshare is possible, but I think it's a bit too wacky for me. Anybody got any more questions? No? Okay, let's move on. So this is like Levwell. It sounds like the what's that cyclist called who took all the drugs? His company's called Levwell. So I don't know if it's a play on those words. This is a very high-end hotel. They've been around for 40 years. It's kind of unique design, character, distinctive, combination of high-quality facilities, individual designs. Their hotels are 80 guests, so they're not super big. They're kind of reasonably big, but not massive. They've got a restaurant, bar, and leisure facilities for guests, and they're located at coastal or rural settings. So they're not really attracting the business customer. We're not getting those business clients who pay a higher margin. Again, one way of earning money in a hotel is to let other people use your facilities. Later on, we find out they're not, the bar and restaurant is only for the customers. That's kind of a big problem for me. It's very unusual to have that. Even like you can go to most of the big hotels in London, you can definitely have a drink at the bar. So it's kind of losing revenue really for me. Especially like if there's a recession, less people going to the seaside, and you're only relying on your customers for the restaurant, your restaurant's not going to be doing very well. You're going to be losing money, right? So they've got owner-managed business model for its hotels. Equity funding, mentioning institutional investors again. I talked earlier about funding question. That's another area you want to explore for rights issue, benefits and problems of equity-based funding. They've got this business development manager who assesses demand. It's quite normal, and competition, and they aim for a growing area. But they've had 2 hotels close, which suggests there may be some issues with some aspect of the hotel. We don't know what they are. We may find out in the post-scene case study about that, right? The post-scene. Now, the board structure looks okay, but is anybody missing? Obviously, is there anybody obviously missing from this board? Is there anybody missing on this board? Yeah. So you've got it there, CTO, Chief Technology Officer, call it IT Director, whichever you want to call it. So we don't have that. Again, it suggests that they're not very technology focused in this hotel. I'm just like a bit concerned, what is the issue? So it points to me that something in the post scene is going to be about technology, right? Some of the questions, it's going to be disruptive technology, it's going to be e-marketing, it's going to be something about big data, AI, something like that, because they've got to really improve on that area in the future going forward. Yeah, one thing it says good in this hotel, it seems like the internal controls is quite good. They've got strong internal controls focused on compliance. Again, the point here that I mentioned earlier, they sell food and drink, revenue generation, guest experience, profit margins are lower than the hotel. That's okay. Only guests eat in the hotel can eat at the restaurant. I think it's a big lost opportunity. And if you look at this other, I think there are lots of opportunities going missing. What about the weddings? What about the conferences? What about the spa weekends? What about the staycations? What about, having special events? There seems to be a lot of not much other, which actually in hotels, most hotels depend on their weddings. Their weddings is massive. It's a massive revenue generator generally in hotels. So I think there's some issue here that they might ask, how are we going to get what strategies, strategic options to generate, what product development can they have? What about the bar? If they can open up the bar and restaurant, could link to marketing. Again, a marketing question about how we're going to market that. Very typical, right? The rate goes down in the off season. They're hitting about still reasonably 70% occupancy. I think to me it's quite reasonable. But again, we need to boost that occupancy in the off season. So this is our weekends, our weddings, our special events, our conferences, our staycations, our music weekends, things we're going to do. My father's just gone to one locally in Yorkshire, which is like, it's in a hotel in Harrogate, and they have like live band every night, for the older crowd. So there's always opportunities here to push that up. And that's something you might be asked about in the post scene. Let me ask you, everybody on the call, right? If you're going to book a hotel right now, tomorrow, where would you go? If you're going to book a hotel tomorrow, what is your first thing you're going to do? The first thing, where would you go? Now, what would you do? What source would you use? Check prices where? Yeah, exactly right. So we're gonna go to booking.com, right? We're gonna go to our Agoda booking.com. That's what we all do, right? Everybody in the world, the first thing they do is they're gonna go to booking.com. So this hotel seems to be like a bit weird, right? But anyway, they can discount the prices by 25% to encourage bookings. It seems to be like very kind of old-fashioned, right? They've got a peak season rate, they've got a low season rate, but they're not very tech. They're not using AI to advise on what is the best pricing. Oh, Alison checks direct. If I'm a lawyer, yeah, if you're a lawyer, you might want to do that. But a lot of you've got to know the hotel first, Alison. So if you're kind of a loyal customer, you can go back there if you really like that hotel. But there's a lot of people don't know the hotels. So the booking.com seems to be like a really missed opportunity. What you might have is a situation. Yeah, they're still above the industry average margin. That is true. But again, it's the margin and there could be opportunity there, right? So and there could be like some resistance. It could be a situation where they want to move towards technology, but one group on the board is resisting. One book on the board is resistance. So overcoming the change. If they're resisting the technology, make sure you know about your change management. Yeah, so they can only do bookings on their own website, which seems like very limited to me, right? I suppose that's where they keep the margin high, but there could be some profitability issues by expanding it out. People making telephone calls. Who makes telephone calls now? My goodness, this seems very old-fashioned. And it says later on they've got a room key, right? So, yeah, so I'm looking at cyber here. They've got this integrated website, which of course they're going to have. All the thing there could be about hacking, cyber security issues going forward. Could be a question about a website that's been hacked. This is kind of just straightforward stuff. I didn't tell much. Again, once again, they seem to have got good control systems. They mentioned it above. They've got good compliance. They've got standard operating procedures. So suggest that their controls are pretty good in the organization, and that they do focus on service going forward. But don't forget, 2 of those hotels have closed. So there's some issue somewhere with something going wrong with these hotels. We don't know what that is. We might find out in the post scene. But they try to focus on good customer service. Employees work part-time. There is some kind of employee recognition. But later on, we find out the employee turnover is like 44%. So they're losing almost half their employees every year. Could there be some initiative back to the SBL syllabus, talent management approach, how to retain and develop good staff, management training, career paths? These are all things that are in the talent management part of the SBL syllabus. They kind of got good practice with their suppliers. I'm thinking when they talk about suppliers, could there be a question about value chain? Well, you've got your input, your process, your output. How can they improve elements in the hotel value chain? But it looks pretty good. It looks pretty strong, their value chain. They've got good procurement, looks good. They've got emphasis on training. HRM looks good. Maybe the one that's like missing is the technology and development part of the value chain. And they're refurbished every 10 years. So value chain and 7S, yeah, the value chain, yeah, it's similar, right? It's similar. So, but it seemed to be pretty good generally here. There's going to be some big bang in the post scene. I'm just looking at this information systems. So, in answer to your question, Vora, either one could be used. I'm thinking about when I saw this part. I'm thinking about, it seems like they've got individual servers. It doesn't really say it, but they seem to have got like physical servers going down here. So I'm just wondering whether or not there could be a question about cloud computing. Okay, cloud benefits of cloud, updating the server's gone down, the server's broken, the server gets flooded, backup procedures, what is the disaster recovery system, all these things, like, because it seems like it doesn't really say much information. So when I see a gap, that's where I get worried and think they're going to ask something about the gap, because they're not being they don't tell us very much information. What they don't tell you is when we get suspicious about things that are going to come in the post scene. Yeah, they've got a whole lot of risks here, and definitely risk management is part of the syllabus. I think because they're mentioned here, I think it's less likely to come in your exam because you're not going to be referring back to this, but they might pick out a few and give you more data They might pick out a few of them or give you specific examples, and they may ask you to assess the risks, specific risks. And if you asked a question about assess the risks, what would you talk about? Yeah. So if you have to assess the risk, you need to look at, there's two things, right? Assess the risk is when we're going to understand the risk. And when we ask to assess the risk, it's got a specific meaning in SBL, and that is risk impact probability, right? What is the impact of the risk? And that's what they like to ask in the exam. Rather than saying these are the risks, they might want to ask a little bit more about some specific or drill down into them. But I think it's because it's here, it's kind of less likely for your examination, less likely. We've got the mission. They talk again about social responsibility here. I'm just thinking again what I mentioned earlier about CSR questions coming up on that. You've got the revenues. Profit margin seems to be pretty good. Like we said, the industry is 10%, so they've got a reasonable margin. We don't know what we're missing is the overall profit. So just because you've got a high margin, we don't know how it's going to feed through into the overall profit going forward, right? So the mix of things going forward. So, but there's opportunity to increase our sales for sure. There's opportunity to increase our revenue. Occupancy, I think it's actually pretty good, but again, we've got 25% of the rooms, almost 25% of the rooms, 23% not are empty on average. So again, we're looking for opportunities to use our technology to do that. We've seen a little bit of growth here. Guest satisfaction seems pretty good to me, pretty high, but if they've closed down hotels, there must be some issues somewhere. Employee turnover still, it's gone down a bit, but it's still pretty high. So that means 40% of your staff are leaving every year. So points me towards talent management question, retaining staff question. How do we retain our staff in the organization? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for me. I'm here now to take any question you've got about the examination for SBL December 2025. Has anybody got any final questions while we're here? Yeah, so one thing, you made a good point there. Yeah, so one thing I would suggest to you, if you can get your hands on them, I'm sure you can find them on the Google. One thing that potentially they can ask about is they can ask about the sorry, there's two previous questions. One's called highlight hotels. One is called highlight hotels, and one is called NEMBI, right? One is called highlight hotels, and one is called NEMBI. So make sure you look at that. They're both like previous, they're quite old, slightly older, past paper questions, and they look at hotels. One's a restaurant where they're going to buy a hotel. So make sure you're looking at those questions, because they may be the ones that come in the examination. Disruptive technology, that was asked in the highlight question in the exam. They specifically asked about disruptive technology in the examination. So you could get asked a question about disruptive technology in the exam. So disruptive technology, anything like mobile, anything where you're using mobile, booking mobile online checking with your phone, all these are disruptive technology potentially. It could be used. And that's what they asked about in that highlight question, was the old question. How can KPIs be tested, or can it come? Remember the rule is anything can come in the examination. That is the rule that we know, that anything can come in the exam. So definitely KPIs. They've kind of mentioned the KPIs already. I mean, you might be asked to suggest KPIs for the restaurant. If it's going to go to the public, open to the public, you may be asked about what KPIs would you suggest for the restaurant? Yeah, that would be one. What would you focus on to revise? Balancing with work. Yeah, everything I've talked about today, Alison, if I mentioned it, that's something you need to focus on for the exam. So like, again, with this video, have a look at it later and I'll link you to it. So anything that I've mentioned is what I think is potentially likely in the examinations. Anything that I mentioned, definitely potentially likely for the examination. High turnover. Is it possible to have corporate governance? Yeah, of course. Like, look, anything's possible. What we don't know here is we don't really know about the corporate governance in the company, right? We don't know we've just got a little bit of information. They may say, you may find out in the post scene that they're all white, old men, and the non-executive directors are all white, old men. So, you know, these are things you've got to potentially, it was not in the post scene though. The exam's not based on the post scene. It was something in the pre-scene. So the exam's not based on the pre-scene. It was something in the post scene. Yeah. Yeah, highlight and NEMBY are the two, highlight and NEMBY. Yeah, so there could be a diversity question, but I don't know, it'll be something, you know, in the posting you'll find out. I mean, you can argue about diversity of skills, diversity of ethnicity, diversity of gender. You know, there's lots of different types. There's lots of different types of diversity. So, yeah. But remember, it's going to be from the post scene. Do we need to know about the BCG? What did I tell you earlier? You need to know everything, right? The exam question can be about anything. Does it seem to be BCG? I don't think so. I mean, it doesn't really strike me as a BCG question, but again, in the post scene, they may give you 3 groups of hotels, some of which are stars, some of which are cash cows, some of which are dogs. And it might tell you in the post scene to analyze the portfolio of hotels based on market share and market growth. And they give you more information and therefore it might come up. Okay. Please don't ask me if a topic will come up because the answer is yes, right? The only answer is, what about this? Can this come up? Yes, definitely yes, right? So anything can come up. Can it be Baldridge's model? Yes. They've asked it once only. It's less likely, but they might ask it again. So anything can come up in the examination, yeah, including project management. And project management for me might be more likely because it's not mentioned in the pre-scene at all, but we know that they are organic growth. They are building hotels. So for me, that building a hotel is a project. So, and there's been a recent article about project management. I did a podcast of that article in my podcast on project management. So if you want to listen to that, that's 10 minutes. It could change your mark in the exam. So definitely project management because they're building their own hotels. They're organic. So yeah, absolutely can come. And it's not mentioned in the pre-scene at all. So it makes it more likely. Yes, Percy Bryan, do you suggest stating the bullet points in the speaker's notes of a presentation slide? No, the bullet points should only be in the slide. and the speaker's notes must relate directly to each bullet. So you don't really need bullet points in the slide notes, but you do need bullet points in the slide. Is my answer. You need bullet points in the slide. 3 to 4 words, keep it quite brief. There are not really many marks available for the bullets. The marks generally on slides are available for the notes. So, yeah. So notes, I don't think you need bullet points. If you do, I don't think it matters, but just make sure that note 1 relates to bullet point 1. Note 2 relates to bullet point 2. So the marker's got a clear idea where that point is coming from. That's the most important thing. And that's where you need your detail. Your detail is in the notes, not on the slide. I struggle with press releases. Any advice on presentation? Press release doesn't really have a specific format apart from a heading that says press release. The only thing, Alison, you've got to watch out for in press release is the most important thing in press release is nothing negative, 0 negative about the company, right? It can only be positive. So press release is something you'll be happy to see printed on the front page of the New York Times without being edited. So you never slag off the company. You never talk about a weakness. You always see things in a positive light. So you only present the good side in a press release. They're kind of biased in a way. So you're looking to present a positive viewpoint or to address any concerns and try to put the try to show the company in a very good light. Yeah. Has anybody got any more questions? What should be the strategy? Well, practice past paper questions. Like the people on my course, they're all doing pre-scene exams based on this case study. They're going to have 2 full pre-scene exams based on this case study. So, that's what they'll be doing. For you, you won't have that. So just hit the past paper questions. Just hit as many as you can because they do repeat. The same ideas repeat. Okay, guys, any last minute questions before I go? This is your last chance to ask anything. I'm going to add this to YouTube in a few minutes. It'll be up by the end of the day, so you can watch it again. Please like and subscribe. And don't forget, podcast, right? Don't forget the podcast. Okay, don't forget, I'll put it in the group chat just so you're all there. This is a great way of revising in the last few days. Great way of revising, right? So hit the podcast is like a good way of revising. Are we supposed to write our answers addressing your company, your strategy? It depends on what the question says. They're all different. Where can we find your podcast? Look up to. Literally, I've just typed it in. martywinner.com pods. Or if you just, if you're really lazy, you can just search for SBL Guru podcast. And definitely this week, there will be a new one about hotels coming up. There'll be a new one about hotels coming, hopefully at the weekend. So make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast. And also there's 5 articles on there. There's 5 articles on there as well. So rather than reading those boring ACCA articles, you can actually just listen to them in 10 minutes. Yeah. But just please like and subscribe to them. And yeah, there's lots of things on YouTube as well. Okay, guys, I wish you good luck in your examination. If you want to do the double mock course, please get in touch. Literally, it has to be the next couple of days because you have to sit it on, like, today's Thursday. You've got Friday, Saturday, you can book it. Sunday night, I've got to give the names. Okay. Good luck to everybody in the exam. And thank you for listening. Thank you for coming.